Have you ever wondered what the world would look like if every man who had lived through decades of triumph and trial stood up to speak the truth? Imagine the power of voices shaped by years of joy and heartbreak, of victories and defeats, rising together in a world drowning in noise and confusion. Because here's the truth, age is not a curse, it is a calling. My friends, these twilight years you find yourself in are not meant for quietly slipping into the shadows. They are meant for shining a light so bright that the next generation can see their way forward. This message is for every man with silver hair, tired bones, and a heart still pulsing with purpose. Old men should not retire from life, retreating into silence and invisibility. Instead, they should rise up to lead not with arrogance, but with wisdom, humility, and unwavering faith. We are living in a time when truth feels negotiable, where right and wrong are constantly twisted by culture, by trending headlines, by the loudest and angriest voices in the room. But the truth does not shift with opinions or polls. Truth is not a trend to be followed or a theory to be revised. Truth is eternal. It comes straight from the heart of God, and it remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. And in these foggy days of moral confusion, old men must stand like ancient lighthouses anchored deep into the rock, unmoved by storms shining bright across turbulent seas. You who have walked through decades of history, through wars and weddings, through loss and unexpected triumphs, know better than anyone the cost of deception. You have witnessed firsthand what happens when people abandon the truth. Families fracture, communities crumble, hearts turn cold. You have seen how lies erode trust like acid, how greed eats away at character, how unchecked pride blinds even the strongest men. And so I say to you, now speak up. Speak not with rage or self-righteousness, but with quiet, steady confidence in what is right. The world has enough noise. What it desperately needs are calm, clear voices of wisdom. Voices that have lived long enough to know the difference between what is fleeting and what is eternal. Young people are watching. They are desperate for something real, something that won't buckle when life grows difficult. They are searching for anchors in a world that seems to drift further from truth each day. If they don't find steadfastness in you, where will they find it? Do you think social media will teach them what is true? Or the influencers chasing clicks and fame? They need real men with real stories, men who carry real scars and the lessons those scars taught. And here's the good news, you don't need to quote fancy philosophers. You don't need a platform, a pulpit, or a perfectly crafted speech. All you need is the courage to speak what is true at your kitchen table, on the front porch, at the barber shop, in quiet conversations with neighbors. Say what you know to be right, even if your voice trembles, even if your hands shake. Because courage is not the exclusive domain of the young, it belongs to the faithful. It belongs to men who refuse to stay silent in the face of lies. Some may say, I've lived too long to get involved now. But let me tell you, you've lived long enough to know better than to stay silent. Your silence is not humility. Silence in moments when truth is under attack can become agreement. And your silence may leave the next generation defenseless. Speak the truth, but speak it in love. Share what you have learned through decades of walking through the highs and lows of life. You know what addiction can do to a man. You know how lies can destroy marriages, how greed corrupts even the best intentions, how pride isolates hearts. You don't need a textbook to recognize the face of sin, you've seen it up close. So tell your story, not to boast in your mistakes, but to glorify the God who carried you through them. Let the hard-earned truth you carry be a lifeline to someone else drowning in confusion. You don't need to raise your voice to make a difference. Just stand. Stand firm in what you know is right, and your very life will speak volumes. Let your consistency, your quiet kindness, your unwavering integrity become a beacon for others. Let your love for what is good and true be steady, clear, and unshakable. Old men can be prophets. In a world gone noisy and mad, not prophets shouting down others with anger, but prophets who teach through their faithfulness, their calm, their compassion. Don't be afraid to say, "This is true." Don't be ashamed to say, "This is wrong." God does not forget the man who defends the truth when it is unpopular. You may never trend on social media. You may never be quoted in the news. But heaven sees, and heaven rewards. In the end, truth will stand. It doesn't need our defense, but it does need our proclamation. And old men who have lived long enough to know what truly matters are its best heralds. Because when truth comes from a life tested by time, it rings with a resonance that cannot be ignored. There comes a moment in every man's life when silence shifts from being a virtue to becoming a danger. You have lived through enough seasons to know that truth is not always popular, but it is always necessary. So let the years you've walked become your authority. Let the battles you've fought give weight to your words. Let the wisdom you've gained light the path for others. Because in a world that's lost its way, your voice could be the very thing that leads someone home. The world is drifting further into confusion, and it feels like the anchors that once kept us steady are being cut loose one by one. The clear lines between right and wrong have been blurred, smudged by compromise, by the lure of convenience, and by the quiet creeping power of fear. But hear this, God's truth does not bend or sway with the times. It does not adjust itself to the latest opinion polls or dance to the ever-changing rhythms of social trends. And in times like these, the older generation must not slip quietly into the shadows. Know now more than ever is the time to stand tall. Your life has been shaped by truth. It's been tested and refined in the fires of real experience. Now let your voice echo with that truth, ringing clear and strong. Because you've seen what happens when lies take root and spread like weeds. You've watched families torn apart by secrets, communities weakened by corruption, hearts shattered by betrayal. You know firsthand that speaking the truth costs something, and you've paid that cost yourself. But you also know what only the truth can do. It sets a man free. And so speak what you know is right. Say it gently, but don't water it down. Say it plainly, but don't lose your compassion. And above all, say it with conviction, so there's no doubt where you stand. Don't let the next generation grow up thinking that silence means agreement. Don't let them believe that comfort is more important than courage. Let them see that there are still men who fear God more than they fear man, who honor the truth more than they protect their own reputation. And once you've spoken the truth, don't stop there. Teach it. Don't settle for being a lighthouse that only shows the rocks. Be the guide who helps others find the safe path. The world today is drowning in information but starving for wisdom. Young people are surrounded by endless noise, but they are desperate, aching for direction. They don't need more critics who stand on the sidelines shaking their heads. They need fathers. They need men who won't just point the way, but will walk alongside them. Men who will open not only their mouths, but their hearts. You might think they're not listening. You might mistake their silence for indifference. But don't be fooled. Deep down, they are longing for someone who will show them how to live when life doesn't go as planned. Tell them what the years have taught you. Tell them how you stumbled, how you failed, and how God lifted you up again. Tell them what you discovered in the moments you lost everything you thought you needed. Tell them about the faithfulness it takes to keep going in the small hidden things, and how those small things, repeated day after day, built a life that could withstand the storms. Your stories aren't just memories to tuck away like yellowed photographs in an old drawer. They are living lessons, nourishment for hungry souls. Share them freely like bread with those who are starving. And don't just teach with your words. Teach with your life. Let the young see a man who honors his wife with quiet faithfulness. Let them see a man who tells the truth, even when it costs him something. Let them catch glimpses of you praying when no one's watching, working hard without expecting applause, forgiving when it would be easier to hold a grudge. Let them see a man who knows he doesn't have to be the loudest voice in the room to know his life matters. You don't need a pulpit or a crowd to make an impact. Sometimes the greatest sermons are preached across a simple kitchen table, looking a young man in the eye and telling him the truth he needs to hear. That's where legacies begin. There is a reason the Bible speaks with such reverence of gray hair. It is a crown of glory not merely because you have survived life, but because you have learned from it, because you carry wisdom forged in the fires of disappointment and victory, of grief and grace. So wear that crown with purpose. Don't hide it or dismiss it. Let it remind you and everyone watching that you have something precious to give. Speak the truth boldly. Teach the young with gentleness. And do it not for your own pride, but out of love for those who are coming behind you and love for the God who has carried you through every high and low. Old men, your race is not over. Your greatest sermons may never be preached behind a pulpit, but they will echo through the halls of your own home in the quiet moments of honesty and guidance. Your greatest impact may not come through your career or your accolades, but through your example, an example that speaks louder than any speech ever could. Because the next generation is watching, give them something worth following. Let them one day say, "He stood for the truth. He showed me how to live with integrity, with faith, with love." There comes a moment in every man's life when he must decide not just how he will live, but how he will finish. And in these later years, when the frantic pace of life slows down and the endless noise begins to fade, what remains is what truly matters: the truth you carried, the love you gave, and the lives you touched along the way. And what truly matters at the end of it all is not how much you've gathered, but how much you've given from the depths of your heart. It's not about the grand words you've spoken in public, but about the quiet convictions you've stood for in private, when no one else was watching. These later years of your life are not meant for quietly fading into the background. They are for rising up and standing tall. Stand for what is right, even when it's hard. You have lived long enough to know that truth is not some passing trend. It isn't something we can vote on, nor is it defined by shifting feelings or fleeting popularity. You've seen firsthand the heartbreak and chaos that happen when men abandon what is right just to follow what is easy. And now, more than ever before, the world desperately needs men who will not bend under pressure. It needs men who will stand firm and say, "This is right, and I will not be moved." You don't need to raise your voice in anger. Just raise your standard with quiet courage. Let your life be a calm but bold declaration that there are still things worth believing in, still causes worth living for, still truths worth dying for. And once you have stood your ground, don't stop. There teach. Teach the young not by delivering lectures, but with love that meets them where they are. Teach not just with words, but with your steady, faithful presence. There is a generation rising up now, hungry for answers that are real and lasting. They are drowning in noise and desperate for truth that doesn't shift with the times. You might feel like they aren't listening, but don't mistake their silence for apathy. They are watching. Watching how you love your wife, how you spend your time, how you carry your burdens, how you respond when pain knocks on your door. Don't let your hard-earned wisdom fade away with you. Pass it on. Share your stories like precious seeds. Tell them about the battles you fought, the grace that carried you the moments you stumbled, and how God lifted you to your feet again. Be honest, be humble, be real, because that kind of truth sticks with them, even when the world lets them down. You don't need a grand stage or a microphone. What you need is a heart willing to pour into others. Sit across from someone on a porch, take a slow walk through a park. Share a simple meal. Teach them not only how to chase success, but how to stay faithful when success feels far away. And as you stand and as you teach, don't forget the most important part: finish. The world celebrates strong starts, but God honors strong finishes. You have walked valleys, climbed mountains, but your journey isn't over yet. Finish with unshakable faith. Hold on tight. Don't drift or coast toward the end. Lean in with purpose. These final chapters can be the most powerful of your entire life. Maybe you can't run like you once did, but you can pray with deeper passion. Maybe you can't build with your hands anymore, but you can speak blessings with your words. Keep your eyes fixed on heaven. Guard your heart against bitterness. Don't let regret steal your final days of joy. Every breath you have left is a sacred gift. Use it to glorify the one who gave it. Let your grandchildren say, "He never gave up." Let your neighbors say, "He stood strong." Let your legacy be woven from truth, wisdom, and faith. Remember, you don't have to be remembered by the world, but make sure you are remembered by your family, and that heaven knows you as a man who finished strong. There is something profoundly sacred about the quiet strength of an old man who has walked the long road of life and still chooses to stand tall. In a world where people sway with every new opinion, where truth is twisted to fit the moment, there is immense power in simply standing. You don't need to shout to make your presence felt. You don't need to argue to make an impact. Just stand. Stand for what you know in your bones is right. You've seen the price of compromise. You've witnessed the destruction that follows when people abandon their convictions to join the crowd. So, don't shrink back now. Stand firm not in your own strength, but in the truth that never changes. And as you stand, take a moment to look around. There are young men and women all around you, some in your family, some in your neighborhood, some who cross your path by chance, who desperately need your guidance. But they don't just need your advice tossed at them like a quick fix. They need your example, your living testimony, your steady presence that shows them what it looks like to walk through life with purpose and faith. You've lived enough years, carried enough burdens, and celebrated enough victories to know what truly matters in this life. So share it boldly. Don't hide the priceless lessons you've learned behind walls of pride or blankets of shame. Be honest with them. Be real. Tell them about the times you got it right and the times you fell flat on your face. Show them what humility looks like by letting them see your scars as well as your successes. Don't waste a moment worrying about sounding perfect. Perfection doesn't inspire anyone, it only intimidates. What the next generation needs isn't a flawless hero. They need someone who's been through. The fire felt the heat of regret, learned hard lessons, and can still say with quiet confidence, God is faithful. Because every generation needs fathers, not only those who share their blood, but fathers in spirit who offer guidance, strength, and compassion. Be that man. Be a teacher. Not a teacher who lectures from a chalkboard, but one who teaches by living a life that reflects patience in adversity, courage in uncertainty, and grace in every season. And as you teach, don't forget about the importance of the finish line. Remember, life is not about how fast or flashy your start was, but about how faithfully you walk toward the end. You might feel tired in your bones. You might feel like the world has moved on without you, or that your voice has grown small in the roar of the modern age. But hear this truth, your journey isn't finished yet. Keep going. Keep standing. These last years of your life are not leftovers or empty days to fill. They are your legacy in the making. Your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, even the strangers who notice you more than you realize, they are watching how you finish. Let them see a man who didn't quit when life got hard, a man who didn't grow bitter when the world disappointed him, a man who continued to believe even when his body grew weak, when friends passed on, and when the world around him made less and less sense. Let them see a man who carried his faith to the very end, who trusted God with every breath he had left, and, above all, be a man of prayer. Maybe your hands can't build what they once did. Maybe your steps are slower, your days, quieter, your body, not as strong as it used to be. But let me tell you this, with absolute certainty, your prayers still carry power beyond anything you can imagine. They can still move heaven. They can still shake the foundations of earth. Never underestimate what happens when an old man bows his head and whispers a prayer with a heart full of faith. Pray for your family by name. Pray for your country that it might return to what is good and true. Pray for your church to stand strong in a culture of compromise. Pray for the young man who is lost and doesn't know what to believe. Pray for the young woman who feels invisible and unloved. Even if you can't always find the words, don't let that stop you. The Spirit intercedes with groanings deeper than words. God hears you. He listens, and He answers. Your quiet moments of prayer whispered in the solitude of your room may accomplish more than all the years of labor you've done with your hands. Because God is never deaf to the cries of a faithful heart, this world glorifies youth and forgets the old. It celebrates fresh faces and quick success, often overlooking the steady strength of those who have already walked 1,000 miles. But God does not forget you. He sees you. He still has a purpose for you. These are not your fading days. They are your finishing days. And they can be filled with power, joy, and purpose if you choose to keep standing, to keep teaching, to keep praying, and to keep loving. Do not grow weary. Do not give up. You've come far farther than you ever thought possible. Don't let discouragement steal these final precious chapters of your story. Let the end of your life shine as brightly as its beginning. Let your legacy be a tapestry woven with truth, wisdom, unwavering faith, and powerful prayer. That is what this world needs. That is what your family needs. And that is exactly what God is calling you to be. All old men should stand tall. In truth, be teachers to the young. Finish their journey with unshakable faith. Be warriors of prayer and love deeply while forgiving freely. Because there comes a moment in every man's life when what he believes matters far more than what he owns. When what he leaves behind in the hearts of others means more than what he leaves behind in their hands. And in these later years, when the world may grow louder but your own voice seems quieter, you must not retreat into silence or fade into the background. You must rise with courage and stand tall in what is true. But truth doesn't budge. It doesn't sway with election results polls or the latest cultural trends. It doesn't bend to what's popular this year or the next. You, my friend, have lived long enough to know right from wrong, not because you memorized a list of rules, but because life itself taught you through both joy and pain. And now, more than ever, the younger generation needs to hear what you know, but they don't need it shouted across a room or barked from a stage. They need to see it in the way you live. A life of quiet, steady conviction speaks far louder than any fiery speech. Let your posture, your choices, your everyday actions tell the world that some things are still worth standing for: honesty, humility, integrity, and faith. And as you stand, don't stop there. Teach. There's a generation rising up today, growing in a world that feels rootless and shallow, surrounded by endless noise, yet starved for something real and lasting. Don't let them wander alone through this fog. Call them close. Share your story. Not the version you've polished up to look impressive, but the true one, the one that shows your bruises, your scars, and the mercy you found along the way. Tell them about the nights you lay awake wrestling with doubt and the mornings you got back up anyway. Tell them what worked, what failed, and how God carried you through both. They don't need your perfection. They need your presence. They need your willingness to sit with them in their questions and show them that faith is not about knowing everything, but about clinging to the one who does. Be a teacher not because you have all the answers, but because you've walked through the storms and seen the faithfulness of God when everything else felt unsteady. The world is overflowing with voices. Be one that offers wisdom, that cuts through the noise with words of life. And don't forget, finish strong. You may look back and feel like your best days are long behind you, but remember, the final lap of a race is where the medal is won. The ending matters just as much, if not more, than the beginning. Don't coast toward the finish line with a sigh of resignation. Keep your eyes fixed on the prize. Keep pressing forward with purpose. Yes, you've carried heavy burdens. You've buried friends, said painful goodbyes, and felt the slow wear of time in your bones. But let your faith burn even brighter in these years. Let your grandchildren see what it means to endure with grace and unwavering trust in God. Let them say, "He kept believing even when it was hardest." Because that kind of faith doesn't just shape individuals, it transforms families, strengthens churches, and brings honor to God Himself. And while you run your final miles, don't stop praying. Maybe you can't travel as you once did. Maybe your hands tremble and your steps have grown unsteady. But your prayers are never bound by time or distance. From your bedroom floor, you can reach heaven. You can intercede for your children and grandchildren, for marriages on the brink, for a nation desperate for healing. Some of the greatest victories ever won have come on tired knees in quiet rooms where old men refuse to stop praying. Don't ever underestimate the power of your prayers in these days. And finally, love. Love with a depth you've never dared before. Let bitterness, which has weighed you down for far too long, slip from your shoulders like an old worn coat. You've carried those grudges long enough. Don't let old wounds harden your heart in these precious years. Forgive the one who wronged you, even if they never say sorry. Call the person you've kept at a distance. Rebuild what was broken. Mend what was torn apart. These are not the years for mourning what was lost, but for mending what can still be healed. Love your wife with fresh tenderness. Hold your children and grandchildren close, even if they've drifted far. Speak blessings over your neighbors, and yes, even over those who've hurt you. Life is far too short, and eternity far too long to waste another day on resentment, because nothing reflects the heart of God more in a man's final years than a soul that still chooses love over bitterness, forgiveness over pride, grace over anger. So stand firm. Teach what you've learned. Finish with faith that endures. Pray with fierce hope. Love with a heart set free. Because in doing these things, you will not only leave a legacy worth remembering, but you will honor the God who has walked beside you every step of the way. As you stand, teach. Finish, pray, and love. Remember, these final days are not leftovers. They are the moments that give meaning to every step you've taken before. Let these truths guide you as you write the last and most important chapter of your life. Let these be the marks of your final chapter, not regret weighing down your heart, but resolve lifting your spirit. Not fear of what's ahead, but faith in the one who's carried you this far. And when your time on this earth comes to an end, let those who gather to remember you say with certainty, "He stood tall. He spoke the truth. He showed grace. He pointed us to God." That is the kind of legacy worth leaving behind. A legacy that speaks louder than words, that lives on long after you're gone. Because there comes a moment in every man's life when silence is no longer safe or noble. When his years demand more than just memories, they demand meaning. A time when his wisdom forged through decades of both joy and hardship cannot stay hidden. The world doesn't need old men who fade quietly into the shadows of irrelevance. It needs old men who stand tall in the light of truth, who refuse to compromise or remain silent while the next generation loses its way. You have lived through enough seasons to know what truth looks like and what happens when it's abandoned. You've seen families unravel, communities weaken, and hearts grow cold when people choose comfort over conviction. Now is not the time to bend under pressure or retreat in resignation. Now is the time to stand firm, not in opinions shaped by shifting cultures, not in traditions that crumble under scrutiny, but in what is eternally right truth that does not change, that does not need approval, that does not bow to popular trends. Let your life declare what your mouth may no longer shout, because some things do not change and some things must never change. But don't let this truth die with you. Pass it on. Give it away freely. The young are watching even when they seem distracted. They are surrounded by endless noise but starving for wisdom that only comes from lives well lived. Be a teacher not through lectures that drone on, but through the example you set every day. Show them how to carry burdens with quiet grace. Show them how to walk humbly, yet stand with unshakable strength. Show them how to live with honor in a world that has almost forgotten what honor even means. You don't need perfect words or a polished speech. You only need a willing heart. Let your scars tell stories. Let your mistakes become lessons. The greatest classroom you'll ever stand in may not have a podium. It may simply be your living room, your front porch, your dining table. Don't waste what life has taught you. Invest it like treasure into the future of those who come after you. And as you teach, never forget that your own journey isn't finished yet. You haven't crossed the finish line. Don't sit down before the race is done. Finish with faith. Keep your eyes fixed on the one who has never left your side from your first breath to these very days. Though your body may weaken and your voice may tremble, let your spirit burn brighter than ever before. Let the final stretch of your life be marked not by retreat, but by relentless resolve. Remember, the same God who held you in your youth still holds you now. Stay close to Him. Be a man of prayer. Even if your hands are no longer steady, your prayers still carry power. Even if your steps have slowed, your prayers can reach further than your feet ever could. Pray for your children by name, for your grandchildren, for their friends who feel lost. Pray for marriages on the brink, for your country in chaos, for a world desperate for peace. Pray for the next generation to walk in light and not lose their way. Your prayers are not just whispers into the void. They are seeds planted in the soil of eternity. Some of the greatest battles you can fight and win in these days will happen on your knees. Don't underestimate the power of a praying old man. And while you pray, love with a depth you've never allowed yourself before. Let go of grudges that have lingered in your heart for years. Release the bitterness that poisons joy and peace. Forgive those who have hurt you, even if they never apologize. Free the captives of your heart, especially if that captive is you. Life is far too short and eternity far too precious to carry bitterness to the grave. Reconcile while you still can. Heal what is broken. Pick up the phone. Write the letter. Embrace those you once pushed away. Tell them you love them, not someday now. Let them see the love of God through your life, even in your final days. Because above all else, you must prepare to meet God. That day is coming for every one of us. But don't face it with fear. Face it with hope. You have been walking toward Him your entire life. Now draw near with confidence. Make peace with your past. Make ready for your future. Examine your heart and let go of what doesn't belong there. Set your house in order, not just your earthly home, but your soul. Because your true legacy will never be measured by what you owned, but by the example you set and the lives you touched. And your greatest reward will not be found in this world, but in the one to come. So stand firm, teach boldly, finish faithfully, pray fervently, love deeply, and prepare your heart with joy. Let your final chapter be your finest one yet. Let heaven find you faithful. Let your family find you full of grace. Let the world remember a man who lived ready and finished well. Don't leave behind a story of bitterness or fear. Let them say, he died with joy. He died with courage. He died with his eyes fixed on heaven. Old men, this world still needs you. Don't shrink back. Step forward. Lead us not with memories alone, but with a mission that points us home.